Political art has been around since politics has, but more recently, people have been getting annoyed at its existence. Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all of it is full of people hating on newer media because it has politics in it. But why is that? Is it because people are getting more and more soft? Or is the art itself changing? People use art as a form of escapism. If you're getting into arguments about BLM over Thanksgiving and hear about it even more when you turn on the news, you might want to sit down and play a video game just to forget about it for a while. But you might just come across it again, pulling you right out of that experience and ruining the escape that you had. The problem isn't that racism isn't a story, the problem is that it's real racism. Racism can be talked about in media just fine, like in a lot of older kids' cartoons, because racism is wrong is a very clear moral to tell children. Older cartoons like the Teen Titans or Static Shock have taught this very lesson by having a racist character and showing how they're wrong. That's it. People don't really have an issue with these, because they're just clear moral lessons that don't take you out of the story. However, look at a more modern example, with the Proud Family. One episode of the show has the characters give a lecture on modern-day systemic racism and how it's wrong. This isn't a moral lesson, it's a political one. It draws people out of the show and makes it feel like they're being preached to, instead of the characters in the story learning a lesson. If you want to have politics in a story, it's best to do one of two things. Either represent both sides in the story and all the pros and cons that come with each argument, or boil down your political message into a moral and use that instead. For example, in Spider-Man Miles Morales, you play through a story of an evil corporation and those who protest against it. However, some people start attacking the corporation and hurting innocent people, which is wrong. The moral is that needless violence in the name of justice is still needless violence and thus still wrong. To me, this feels a lot like a symbolism for BLM, since they were known to use violence and riots to push their message. The game could have been a lot similar to BLM if it wanted to. It could have made the original conflict about racism or oppression, or could have made the company owner look more like a real-life politician. But it didn't, because it didn't need to be a one-to-one recreation of a real event to push the message it intended to. It took a real thing, like BLM, boiled down to the one thing it wanted to talk about, which was violence in the name of justice, and talked about that, separate from everything else. So it doesn't feel real, it feels like a story in a video game. The game then also had BLM artwork, so what do I know? If you're trying to make art and want to have a political message in it, just don't do it so overtly. People want to escape. So when your art is all about preventing that escape and forcing the audience to think about the real world events or controversies, then you fail to actually resonate with your intended audience, completely voiding the entire purpose of the message to begin with. Side note, before I end, people on Twitter have been pointing at movies by the Daily Wire, such as Am I Racist? And asking why people didn't get mad at that, since it was overtly putting politics in art. However, movies like that are political art, not art with politics in it. So it's not really the same. It's like comparing a comedy show to a joke told at a funeral. They're not the same thing. People on Twitter are stupid.